You're tuned in to HorrorSlop, where the stories are rotting, truth is twisted, and sleep, forget about it.
Yeah, welcome to the pit. It's gross, it's creepy, and honestly, it's kind of my vibe. Hope you like nightmares, because tonight's tale, it slithers.
Straight from the darkest corners of Reddit. Real stories, real fear, and just enough blood to stain your soul.
So at least grab your bed sheets, so grab a flashlight, and maybe a therapist.
This is HorrorSlop. Every night starts somewhere, and this is where yours begins. First story, first chill. Let's see if you make it to the end.
She glanced at me with a nervous smile. You always do that. Yeah, everything is okay, but I've been debating on when to tell you about the unique feature of my house. An NBSP. Well, you know this is an old house I have, right? My great-great-grandparents built it over 100 years ago. And I had never even been to it while my grandmother was alive. I could tell she was trying to build up her courage to get it out, and before I could respond, she finally did. Well, the house is kinda haunted. Kinda not really. Her voice went up at the end like she was asking for my confirmation. An NBSP. What I mean is, it's not a ghost. It's a yokai. Which I can tell you don't know what that is. Okay. It's kind of a general term for a wide variety of creatures and spirits in Japanese folklore. And apparently they're real, at least some of them, because I have one. An NBSP. Kamiko was frowning and shaking her head, her eyes going between me and the road. I am. And it's not really a spider, at least not a normal spider. But it's about the size of, well, like that show Lassie. It's about Lassie-sized. And it's lived there since the house was built, at least according to the letter my grandmother left me when she died. It doesn't hurt or bother anything or anybody, and most of the time it stays out of sight. Occasionally it'll come out to watch TV if I have it on. It likes game shows for some reason. But the best thing is it keeps the house immaculate. An NBSP. I blinked. Your border collie-sized spider ghost is a maid. An NBSP. She shot me a look. Not a ghost, a spirit, or part spirit, or whatever. But yes, it cleans. Never when you're around, and it has to be through magic, but I haven't had to lift a finger since I moved in. An NBSP. Shrugging, she led me deeper into the house. It's hard to say. It keeps to itself mainly, and it won't ever approach you, even though it doesn't run if you approach it. I guess in theory, it would let you touch it, but I've never tried. She gave out a short laugh. This sounds so weird actually talking about it to another person. She suddenly stopped and turned, giving me a quick hug. I'm really glad you're here. An NBSP. By the time I arrived home, the entire trip seemed surreal. I was also exhausted. I put down my suitcase, cleared out a spot on my messy bed, and fell asleep. I woke 5 hours later, and seeing the piles of clothes, the furry dishes in the sink, and the general messiness that I could only partially blame on preparing for the trip, I found myself wishing I had a ghost spider made of my own. Shaking away the thought, and after a depressing look in the fridge, I went out for pizza. An NBSP. That's when I saw my suitcase. It had been set against a wall and emptied, but when I got closer I could still see a small bulge in the front pocket at the top. The pocket was partway unzipped, and I used the light on my phone to look inside. There was an egg in there. A strange, leathery black egg the size of a large chicken egg, its surface shiny except for intermittent dull flecks of green. Even at a distance I could see the egg had been opened from the inside and was empty. An NBSP. It was almost cute. Which probably meant it would kill me and fill my body cavity with eggs. I regretted the thought and swallowed. An NBSP. Are we cool? I felt like an idiot talking to a little monster on my wall, but it just blurted out. Then it nodded. An NBSP. Going to live here together and get along, not hurt each other. An NBSP. I recognized that knife. Chet used to carry it around in his truck the times we went out. I felt my stomach clench. I managed to slip the knife loose with some effort and used it to free enough webbing to remove the mask. Chet's face was hollowed and drawn, and I could see that his throat had been ripped out. An NBSP. It's hard for me to say how long he had been there, but I had seen enough to know what had happened. I grabbed my raincoat and went out. When I returned home that night, every trace of him was gone. For the 10th time I considered calling the police, but what could I say? In the end I sat down and turned on the television. It only took a minute to find a game show to watch. An NBSP.
Anyway, let's lighten the mood with something fun and... Nah, just kidding. It gets worse. Hit it.
The man in front of me was your typical upper-middle-class suburban dad, except for the disheveled hair and streaks of dirty and dried blood on his forehead. He was being bandaged by 3 nurses, including Joe, the one who called me. Mr. Daniels then started a foundation under her name to raise funds to help other victims. The illness is incurable, but the palliative care makes a difference, and is incredibly expensive. Why was that, Mr. Daniels? I don't know, honestly. But I'm sure that's why Alice attacked me. She's such a good girl, please don't be so harsh on her when you find her. Alice? Who's Alice and what happened to her? Joe made a note to have his head checked. Alright. How long has Alice been babysitting for you? And was she normal when she arrived? One would imagine her relationship with your family was longer, considering how you get along, I remarked. Oh, wasn't Vicky your babysitter? Joe asked. Mr. Daniels frowned in pain. She was, the poor thing. And she had been at my house the night she disappeared too. I think that's yet another villainy caused by my house. I swear I'd leave that hell of a place if it didn't hold so many dear memories of my wife. It does seem like you're cursed. Joe cooed. She was often insensitive, but I knew that the only way to cope with seeing human misery daily is being cheerful about everything else. All the nurses left the room. Are you sure it was Alice? Wasn't the house dark? I am sure because it was dim due to the Christmas decorations. Alice attacked me with such hatred. She wanted to kill me. That's not the girl I know, of course. She was possessed or something, I'm sure of that. And what did you do? I don't remember. She screamed and struggled, but I can't really remember if she said anything. I don't think my brain processed any words. As soon as we put it on, right after Thanksgiving. I bought a whole new set of lights when they first started flickering in a creepy way, but the second was glitching too. I called my electrician and he found nothing wrong. So I left them on. Lindsay loves Christmas because it particularly reminds her of her mom, and it's not twinkling weirdly all the time anyway. Did anything weird happen before that? Regarding the house being haunted, I mean. I decided to entertain his supernatural beliefs. Maybe it would lead to a more rational clue. His hands were shaking a little now. There's some sort of presence, I don't know. Something bad. I only feel it when Lindsay is not around, so maybe it only hates me, Mr. Daniels nervously laughed. It could be some vengeful spirit, then. Did you wrong anyone, Mr. Daniels? I asked, dead serious, even though I didn't think so. This man helped people. I sure hope I didn't, he replied very quietly. On the foundation? They're fine, I guess. I'd have to ask my accountant, of course. I'm just a guy who shakes hands to make sure the checks will come. But this premeditation is not compatible with being possessed, if there's such a thing. Is she afraid of the lights twinkling weirdly? With my sister-in-law. I don't want her to set foot on that house again. What if I go crazy next and hurt my daughter? I thought too. But as the only female cop in town, I couldn't afford to be like all the cops. I had to be better. Dit space dit da 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 space dit da dit da dit da dit da dit da da dit da da. Mr. Daniels had been skimming a lot of money from his charity. He was using most of the donations in order to try to resuscitate his cryogenically frozen wife. The lights flickering made him panic every time because he thought it was a sign that Vicky was watching him. According to Mr. Daniels, Vicky was 99% pulverized by one of the Russian substances he was testing in order to resuscitate his wife. But I found Alice in the trunk of his car, a bloodied kitchen knife still in her hand. He had squeezed her neck until she passed out, thus the dislocated shoulder. He then tied her arms and legs, put a bag on her head and left her to die in a confined space. I was friends with her a long time ago. Maybe science will catch up in the future, who knows?
You feel that? That weird pressure in the room? Yeah. That's the algorithm. It knows you're watching, and it gets real cranky when you don't feed it. A simple ritual helps. Click the little thumbs up, tap subscribe, say its name 3 times into your phone mic. Kidding, probably.
Engagement appeases the darkness. You know what to do.
Good, human. Now, back to the horror.
I am the first documented human being with pentrachromatic vision. That means that I have 5 different types of cone cells in my eyes. Almost every human being is a trichromat. That means there are 3 types cone cells in their eyes. These cells can each distinguish around 100 individual shades, but they mix together with one another, which means that the average trichromat can see about 1 million different colors. As a pentrachromat, I can see around 10 billion. No other mammal can do that. Only pigeons and a few butterflies. If this doesn't sound like a big deal, then let me ask you a question. What's the most beautiful thing you've ever seen? A sunset? A rainbow? There are some things that I didn't even know had color until I became a pentrachromat. Movement has color. Every time something moves it creates a faint trail of a color that I can only describe as energetic. I've taken to calling this color this. Most fruits are multicolored, but trichromatic eyes only pick up on the primary color present in them. If peaches look to you how they do to me, then you probably wouldn't eat them anymore. I wasn't born a pentrachromat. I was born with boring old trichromatic vision just like you. Then I got in a car accident. You know what color the sparks are when 2 pieces of metal collide? I call it ink. That's the sound my wife's car made when it hit the Subaru next to us. It's actually a comforting color. It evokes the same kind of feeling that you get when you smell wood smoke. Blood isn't just red anymore. It's also cruer. Blood was the last thing I saw before I lost my vision. Victoria was driving. She was drunk, but not as drunk as I was. We were fighting. It was my fault. Our car spun out and crashed into the median. Victoria was thrown from the car. My seatbelt pinned me to the seat. The windshield exploded into 1 million pieces. Broken glass has a whole slew of colors present in it. Too many to name. How much? Mr. Southern Gentleman was from a testing facility in Guillemon County, Colorado that was working on biomechanical enhancements. They needed somebody whose eyeballs had been destroyed but somehow still had functioning optic nerves. Someone who still had full brain function and could describe what they saw. Someone desperate enough that they wouldn't mind being a human guinea pig. That was me. The surgery took 4 hours. They had warned me beforehand that my experimental eyes would be more powerful than my original eyes. They didn't warn me that my pentachromatic eyes would see things that mankind wasn't meant to see. After the procedure, the first thing that struck me was my fingernails. They were colorful in a way I had never seen before. I asked the nurse if she had painted them. She hadn't. Her fingernails were also colorful. As it turns out, fingernails aren't colorless. They're a color I call phoetus. It's probably for the best you can't see it. It's not a pretty color. The nurse's breath was a color I called nubula. Most people's breath is still colorless to me, but if a person smokes cigarettes regularly enough, then it becomes nubula. Growing used to being able to see again meant growing used to all the new colors. Everything looks different than it did before. People's faces are so complexly colored that it's easier to identify someone by the random patches of color on them than by the actual shape of their face. It's comical that there is so much fighting about skin color in the world, because when you can see 10 billion colors, the slight chromatic differences between black and white don't make a difference. The first time I saw her was 2 months after the accident. Victoria had been more heavily injured than me. When she was thrown from the car, it shattered the bones in both her arms and legs. The bone fragments tore up her musculature pretty bad. It took 12 hours of surgery to save her life. They had to amputate everything. Her skin was so burned by the asphalt that it took 4 skin grafts to restore her face. They never got it quite right. I thought I was prepared for Victoria to be a quadriplegic. Doctors explained her condition ahead of time and warned me that it would be gruesome. They warned me that her limbs would be nothing more than stubs. But they couldn't see what I could see. They couldn't have warned me that there would still be something where her limbs had once been. I've tried to outrun it, but it always catches up with me. It won't leave me alone. Anima won't stop following me. Anima isn't the color of death. The thing following me can't be dead because it always knows where I am. It moves just like Victoria used to move. It's her. I know that it's her. Victoria, if it really is you in that cloud, then I'm sorry for everything I did wrong. I'm sorry for all the words I never got a chance to say. Please don't follow me anymore. I just want to be alone. I know you can read this. I don't think anima is the color of death. That things that follow us are alive, at least in their own way. They're the souls of the departed. Souls that are trapped. Souls that can't stop following us. Man was never meant to see anima. We were never meant to know what happens to us when we die. I see the colors you cannot, and they hide a horrible secret. There is no heaven or hell. When we die, we don't move on. We stay and watch, silently, until the end of time.
Alright, quick break before our next story. Let's check in with our resident spooky dude. Hey, you ever smile, or is your face just stuck that way?
I smiled once. The sky bled. A child vanished. Never again.
Okay, drama. Maybe next time just try a dad joke.
Knock knock. They never made it to the door.
Wow. Fine. Stay moody. Anyways, back to the darkness. This next one's got teeth.
Hello. I am Sarah. I am 8 years old and I live in Waynesbury, which is in England. My family is Mummy, Daddy, Josh and Peter. Peter is a rabbit. He is white. Photosynthesis is how plants eat their food, which is from the sun because of light. Josh says we should ask Mummy and Daddy, but I think that is a bad idea because it is a secret and Mummy wouldn't want us to know about adult secrets. Josh does not have very good ideas because Josh is only 6. He can't even say photosynthesis. Emily is wrong. After that we played some games, and then it was time to go inside because it was dark. Some of the adults stayed outside but all of the children had to go inside in case we got lost. The farm is very big and there are lots of places where you can go missing. You can drop down a well or get swallowed by mud or fall in a silo and your parents might never find you. That's why Auntie Janet said to stay inside when it's dark. After that we all went to bed. The adults stayed up after us and carried on drinking and talking and laughing and I couldn't get to sleep, even though Josh and all of the other children did. I went to the window and looked out and all of the adults were walking towards the trees. They had torches and they weren't drinking or laughing, so I don't think it was part of the party. I got worried that maybe one of the children had gone missing. Auntie Janet had said that it was easy to get lost, so they might all have gone out to look for one of us. I checked the rooms where the children were sleeping, but they were all still there. Then I realized they must have missed Josh when they checked on us, because he was all snuggled up under his covers and you couldn't see his head. I didn't know what to do. Mummy and Daddy would be so worried because they thought Josh was lost but he was still in bed. I decided I had to find the adults to tell them that Josh wasn't lost. It was very dark outside. The trees were waving and making noises and I was a little bit scared, but then I could hear the adults ahead and I wasn't scared anymore because I knew Mummy and Daddy would make sure I was safe and they would be so happy that Josh wasn't lost. I ran the rest of the way, but then when I was very close to the voices I fell over. I didn't hurt myself because it was on soft mud and leaves, and I am 8 now so I don't even cry when I fall down. But my torch went off and rolled away so I was in the dark again. I had tripped on something soft and squishy which was on the floor. I reached down because my foot was caught in it and it felt like clothes, but warmer. Then I saw the adults. They were dancing in such a strange way. At first I thought they were hurt or trying to shake off their clothes, but they were laughing so I think they liked it. Mummy and Daddy were there. So was Uncle Chris and the others. I looked around for Auntie Janet, though, and I couldn't see her. I thought it was a strange thing to do if they were here to look for Josh. They didn't seem to be looking for anything at all, unless that was where Auntie Janet had gone. But none of them seemed worried. That was when I realized that they weren't checking our bedrooms to see if any of us were lost. They were making sure we were in bed so we didn't see this. Now I knew I'd get in trouble if they found me watching them. I started to feel around for my torch so that I could go home. I would get lost going back in the dark, and if I couldn't find my light then I would have to wait for the adults to finish so that I could follow them home. Before I found the torch, I heard that animal voice again. It said freedom. The adults cheered. I couldn't see who was saying it because they were on the other side of the fire. Then I saw Daddy reach inside his mouth. He held his top lip and his bottom lip. I had never seen an underself before. I didn't know we had them. Daddy seemed to like it though. He stepped out of his skin and he stretched his arms wide and he yelled at the moon. Uncle Chris went next, and once he had taken off his skin he threw it away. The other adults cheered. Then they all took theirs off, and they started to dance again, like they were angry at the fire and the trees. And most of all like they were angry at their skins which were dropped around at their feet and trampled into the mud. Only Mummy hadn't taken off her skin. I started to think that she couldn't, like me. But then Daddy walked over to her. He raised his hand to her face and I saw that his fingers were sharp now like a claw. But Mummy didn't pull away. She closed her eyes and whispered to him. Then he reached into her mouth and he pulled her face away. Then they howled. I couldn't stand that noise. It was too loud and it shook inside my head and it made my chest feel so small so that I couldn't breathe. I ran. I ran and I ran and I ran and I don't know how long I was running. I just knew I needed to run away from their howls and their screams and their laughter. Somehow I got back to the farmhouse. I went back inside and I went to bed and I pretended to go to sleep. I kept thinking about how the adults took off their skin. I thought about asking him about the adult party, but I was scared I'd get into trouble because I don't think I should have seen it. Instead I went downstairs. Everyone was having breakfast, and the adults seemed very cheerful and awake even though I knew they hadn't been to sleep. They were looking at each other and smiling. The other children said yes and got their cereal and toast. I sat at the table with my bowl but I hadn't got anything in it. I wasn't hungry. I think Mummy knew something was wrong, because she looked at me funny. I know it's wrong to lie. But I did. All of that was a week ago. Since then I have not slept very well at all. When I am in the bathroom getting ready for bed, I practice taking off my skin, but it doesn't work. I don't know how they did it. Then every night I dream about the underselves, and how everyone else takes off their skin but I can't, and I am hiding in that bush and they are calling for me to come out in their animal voices. But I'm scared to come out. Not the other children. Not even Josh. Just Mummy, Daddy and me. I think they might have another party.
You're still tuned to HorrorSlop. Frequency unknown. Stories endless. Let's spin the next nightmare.
It takes longer to recover from that than it used to. Are you okay, Grandpa? Children are eternally frustrated by their perceived powerlessness over the adults in their lives. They have no idea that their ability to devastate us is absolute. Later that night, I left the book in the attic. I keep a box up there. It's filled with things that I don't want to throw away, but am perfectly aware that I'll never use again. My son will likely put that box in a dumpster after I die. But they had moved forward. My heart rate skyrocketed. The wild rumpus had just begun. I couldn't afford to stop reading. Grandpa? Why are you breathing funny? Melosi asked in confusion. The curtain fluttered. A floor-to-ceiling curtain hung next to her bed, and it was unmistakably hiding the form of a tall figure. As I watched, a weathered hand grabbed the edge and pulled it closer in a clear attempt to hide itself. He was listening. I could not let him know that I'd seen him. My granddaughter's life depended on it. But my pulse would not come down. I was sweating when I got to the part where the monsters were begging Max to say, declaring that, "We love you so." I had one eye glued to the man in the corner, yet was giving an Oscar-worthy performance. I had to keep her on the line. The man was getting antsy. And why not? He was clearly waiting for her to go to bed so that he could strike. The only thing in his way was my bedtime story. The toe of a dirty, black boot slid out from behind the curtain. And, I crooned evenly, it was still hot. I didn't want to close the book, because that meant my plan was finished. I had nothing left. Melosi yawned. Do you have one more story, Grandpa? I swallowed. I'm not sure where my Mulan book is, so dash. She reached forward to turn off the phone while the curtain behind her twitched. Wait, I instructed calmly. She blanched. Then she closed her eyes. Last year, Mommy and Daddy took me to the Florida Keys, and we went to an island where we were the only people. Daddy told me that I could be princess of the island as long as we were the only ones there. You are a princess, Melosi. Remember that. I smiled. Is he behind me, Grandpa? She whispered. She froze. She blinked once, pursed her lips, and nodded. Then calm settled on her face, and she smiled. A girl is a princess if just one person who loves her says so. Do you see that? You will always be a princess to me, Melosi. A peace came over her, and in that moment, it would not have been realistic for me to ask for anything more. I drew in a shuddering breath. I realized that within a few seconds, I had watched her grow up just a little bit. And I lost a small piece of myself to the mundane reality that we approached the end by dying in parts. Clunk. Clunk. Now, I ordered softly. You need to meet this, Melosi. It's not fair to ask this at your age, but I can't stop it now. She smiled calmly. Clunk. Then my granddaughter stood up, turned around, and faced the man in her room. My granddaughter collapsed to the ground, breath heaving as her eyelids closed. I'm really tired now, Grandpa, she slurred. Her head lolled to one side. That was very hard. Please, Grandpa, she sighed. Please don't make me do that again. My son's footsteps raced through the hall toward her room. BD. Watch. Listen.
Still with us? Good. That last one was just the warm-up. Let's go deeper.
My uncle left me a shifty little bar in his will. The employees here sleep in the back room, by girl from the crypt. My uncle was an odd, lonely man. That one guy you try to avoid at family reunions, the one nobody knows too well but loves to talk about nonetheless. I think he liked me best because I never really enjoyed badmouthing him. I wouldn't say we were close, but we tolerated one another. At least that's how it was when I was little, we never bothered to stay in contact. I forgot about him by the time I left home. That's why the news of his death caught me completely by surprise. Uncle Mac was alone in his apartment when he had a heart attack causing cardiac arrest. He fell unconscious and died within minutes. I'll be frank, I had no idea what to do with the bar, but I knew from the very start I'd take it over. I felt kind of honored. This had basically been Uncle Mac's entire life and he was giving it to me of all people. Sure, from what I knew there hadn't been many friends or loved ones in his life to choose from, but it was still flattering to me. Once I read the first letter, I was even more convinced. Once you're done reading this, please go to the bar at your earliest convenience. Take the box of letters with you and stash it away somewhere there. It has some valuable advice you're gonna need down the line. In fact, you will need to read the second letter right after your arrival. You'll find my employees are a bit special. Anyways, I hope you're doing alright, however this letter finds you. You're a good kid, Leah. Always have been. Besides, the only person you could possibly disappoint by screwing this up is dead, so there's no pressure to impress. Sincerely. Your Uncle Mac. It was so strange, but I suddenly just felt like this bar was mine, and that I needed to take care of it and protect it. Remembering what Mac had told me in his first letter, I pulled the second one out from the box and unfolded it. Hi Julia. If you're reading this, you're probably at the bar for the very first time. How do you like it? Let me guess, it's ugly and gross, but it instantly started growing on you. Don't worry, it's about to get a lot weirder. You'll find the entrance to the back room behind the counter. The light switch is on the inside of the wall, make sure to turn it on before you head inside because there's stairs leading down right behind the door. It's a death trap. Once you're in there, stand in the middle of the room. Stay away from the walls. You may then say out loud the following words. Spirits of this house, by the power of the spell that has bound you, I command you to serve. Sincerely, your Uncle Mac. I glanced around the room frantically. Holes had opened in basically every spare spot. I counted 4 sets of arms pulling themselves out into the light, followed by similarly slender upper bodies. By the time I finally thought to run back up the stairs and save myself, the people from inside the walls were standing in the back room, fully emerged from their dark hideouts. I didn't risk another look at them. When I finally reached the top stair, I dashed back into the bar and slammed the door shut behind me. I pressed myself up against it just to keep standing. My knees had grown weak beneath me and I was panting heavily, my mind racing. Then I heard them, slow, light footsteps making their way up the staircase and stop on top of it. I heard calm, steady breathing coming from the other side of the door. I tensed up and shifted my weight on my feet, leaning up against it to keep whomever was in there from getting out. I was sure this person would start to try pushing it open, but to my surprise, nothing happened. Instead, a voice rang out from inside. Excuse me, who are you exactly? It was a man's voice. I had expected something like a growl, or a hiss, or the groans of some decomposing zombie, but this was distinctly more articulate. It sounded almost polite. I didn't know what to do other than respond. Julia, I stammered. Go ahead, I murmured. Never mind, they heard us. So, will you let us out now or? Who are you? Why were you in there? We work here, actually. My name is Anric. I do most of the organizing here. I take care of the accounting, our profits, our spendings. I place the orders on most of what we need. Back here with me, I've got Bo, who is our bouncer, and Danica and May, both waitresses. No, that's fine, I muttered, slowly turning away from the door and carefully pulling it open. The man in front of me was of normal height, slender and looked to be in his 30s. Despite being dressed in jeans and a simple black t-shirt with the bar's name printed on it in white, swirly letters, he had a very official look to him. Maybe it was the way he stood, straight as a rod with a friendly yet matter-of-fact smile on his face. 3 more people emerged from the back room, all dressed exactly like Anric, all of them that same content little grin on their lips. They walked by me offering polite greetings, the first one, a large, bulky guy giving me a curt nod and the 2 women that followed smiling brightly. The girls were a little younger than Anric, maybe in their late 20s. Both had blonde hair hanging down their shoulders in wavy pigtails. For example, their eyes didn't line up. One was always slightly lower than the other, just enough for someone to notice. Their nostrils would differ in width and one of the girl's pinky fingers was the same length as her ring finger. Had I not known that they had just crawled out from the backroom walls, I would have chalked these harmless little oddities up to simple, inconspicuous deformities, but knowing what I knew, it made my skin crawl with uncomfort. I soon found out that Anric did most of the talking for them. Bo rarely ever said a word, and all the waitresses did was whisper amongst themselves, giggle and chat with the patrons. Eventually, Anric waved me over to him behind the counter. Alright, to give you a rundown of the place, we have a cash-only system. We rely on our local clientele, but once in a while someone new comes by and then we try and keep them around, obviously. Here's some of our regulars. He pointed at a lady sitting in a corner, weeping over an empty glass of whiskey. That's Shauna. Comes here whenever she can, only ever orders whiskey. Will not stop crying. His finger wandered over to an old, short man with an almost disproportionately large head and short white hair. He was sitting at one of the tables as well, talking to 2 younger women who seemed very much out of place. That's Tommy. He's likely to start fights but he drinks a lot and tips very generously. Bo throws him out a lot, but he's very easy on him, so don't worry. The pale man threw me a confused glance. What do you mean? She's right. Oh. Of course. Don't worry, you'll start seeing her with time. Either way, for now there's actually not much for you to do except read up on barkeeping once you get the chance. However, you should start getting acquainted with the regulars. After all, the owner of the new saloon will always be part of the reason why people come here. He paused as his mouth started to twitch into an almost guileful grin. I have a feeling they're going to love you. I accidentally on purpose walked by the waitresses who were talking to each other in hushed voices, picking up on small bits of their conversation. Her blood is weaker than his. Do you think she's... We shouldn't take any chances. Remember what Mac did when we tried to test him? I do, but this could be our chance to have some fun. Lacking a better option, I stayed at a nearby inn that night. As bizarre and frightening as all of this had been, I got out of it unscathed. The bar workers and I would end up coming to blows in the future though, more than once. And I wouldn't always be that lucky. Part 3, my bouncer and I got beaten up by a little girl. Part 4, the regular who never stops crying. Part 8, Uncle Mac left me his archenemy. Part 11, the last time I saw the little girl. Part 12, we paid a visit to Norman's house.
Something's still listening, and it wants more. Next story. Just don't say its name.
Hello. His voice was gruff. I hesitated before responding. Hello, am I speaking with Ward Woodson? I found myself tearing up. It was good to be speaking to someone else in my family besides my sister for the first time. What happened to her? Is she okay? Derwin. Come on in. I walked in and sat on the couch when he motioned for me to. He seemed to be something of a pack rat. Through all of his junk, however, I saw a picture of a young couple who only could have been my grandparents. You have come a long drive to tell me something important. My uncle shook his head, also staring down at the floor. Don't beat yourself up, man. I know exactly how you feel. I was the reason my old man was taken from me. You know, kids, never listening to their parents. I opened the door and he shoved me out of the way. He was taken by them instead. Them? Ward looked like he wanted to tell me something, but then he shook his head and sat back down. He chugged his beer and looked at me. We don't speak of them. There's a chance they can come out, if we do. I clenched my fists. Come on, Ward. I need to know the truth. I don't want my daughter to be at risk for the rest of her life. What if she forgets to knock or something? I can't bear to lose her, not after what happened to my mom. Please. I'm willing to take that chance. Ward looked into my face, sighed, and drained the rest of his beer. You look like your mother, you know that? I could never forgive myself for what I did to our father. I cut myself away from Dorinda out of guilt. Before it happened, we both thought our pa had lost his mind. He told us about them when we were teenagers. They're called the Forgotten. Well, nephew, I think that's enough dash. So he survived after coming across them. So that means it's possible, that my mom is still alive. I couldn't tell you. I would rather believe that she's not, tell you the truth. Just promise me something, nephew. Promise me you won't do anything stupid. The door began to open. My uncle dashed over to it and rammed his shoulder into it. I heard what sounded like a pained, very human-like scream emanate from within. That's when I heard the front door beginning to creak open as well. Derwin, the thing on the other side screeched, and I lost my shit. I pushed harder, but now it seemed as though the thing was forcing its leg, which looked malnourished, out to gain leverage on me. I heard a knock behind me and then my uncle was coming to my aid. He stomped on the leg, causing the creature to scream and pull it back in. The arm followed, and, once the door was closed, my uncle knocked frantically. The forceful pushing from the other side stopped. The two of us stared at the door, panting, sweat rolling down our faces. And if they aren't? And number X200B.
Sleeping yet? Didn't think so. Next story's up. And yeah, it's worse. You're welcome.
When you left me, you left the coffee shop with 3 other people. I thought I lost my chance with you. You can understand how surprised I was when you asked me out on a date when I saw you walking around our town with the same 3 people. The day I woke up and saw a man walking down the stairs with you, the guilty look apparent on your face, I had a lapse of judgment. I told you we could work it out. I told you I could become something so much more. You promised to stay loyal, and I promised to become the best version of myself I could possibly be. The next couple of months, I was finally happy again. You were home when I got off of work, and it really seemed like you were getting closer to our daughter. I should have known it was all for show. You were just putting on a show, and secretly stashing away money so you could run away. You told me you never loved me, and that you hated our daughter. You may not have noticed, but our daughter was crying in her crib as you ran out the front door and ran into the night. No. You definitely noticed how different our town is from everywhere else. You may have noticed that the police officer that promised to help you escape abused your trust, but hell, like I said, our town is different from the rest of the world. Every time you ran away late at night, there would always be someone there to catch you and return you safely back at our house.
Whew, telling gave me chills. But hey, we're just getting started. The next one's sharper. You'll see.
I watched you not care about your persona, and I understood it to an extent. Many articles online claim that people tend to let themselves go because they don't expect their partners to lose attraction, and we have been together for 13 years after all. I stomached your disgusting habits and bad odor, because I care for you. Then the day came that changed everything. You woke up sober and dressed neatly, even went so far as to shave your face, and this suspicious behavior had me trailing you once more as soon as you left the house. I watched from afar as you bought nice flowers and what seemed to be a picnic basket. Of course you were preparing to meet her, and that was something I didn't want to watch. But something made me follow you still. You took me by surprise as your journey led into the cemetery. I kept my distance as you paused near a grave for what seemed like hours. It took me a considerate amount of time to recognize the tears on your cheeks, 'cause I swear I had never seen you cry before. You left the flowers on the grave and walked away with the basket still in hand. I went home after that. I didn't need to see anymore. I'm in the kitchen as I'm writing this on your laptop, and you're in the bathroom. It's nearly 1:30 and that woman I saw you with at the bar is still sound asleep in our bed. But I understand it now, Matthew. Now I know why you're sobbing faintly in the bathroom and why my name stood on that gravestone. I understand and I forgive you. You can stop grieving now and be with that stranger on my side of the bed with a clear mind. Just remember that I'll be near and watching over you as I always had, for once your lifetime ends you'll belong to me again. The laptop has refused to turn on after I got this copy.
Need a break? Too bad. These stories don't wait, and neither do we. Next one's worse, in the best way.
I pre-write emergency alerts. I think we're about to be in real trouble, by Funanjiki. This week the mood in our office changed. My boss had a meeting with several scary-looking people in dark suits. She emerged from that meeting several shades paler. I tried asking what it was about, but she just shook her head. She'd been given classified information before, it was part of the job, but she'd never been visibly shaken by those briefings. I don't think those alerts I entered are a joke. I think my boss knew what they were about. And now I'm terrified about what I don't know. I'm terrified for what may be happening. I'm terrified we aren't prepared to deal with it. That's why I'm sharing those alerts with you. I don't know what's going to happen to me after I post this. I haven't thought that far ahead. But I can't in good conscience leave people in the dark. If things about to be as bad as I fear, I want to know that at least I tried to help. / Turn up the volume of all electronic devices. If you have headphones, keep them in with high volume. Do not listen to the voices. / The water has changed. Do not drink it or touch it. Bottled water is still safe. Turn off all faucets and water sources. Turn off all electronic devices and unplug them. This device included. They can activate them remotely. / The moon still exists. What you are seeing isn't real. / If you see a green man on your television screen, leave the building immediately and alert authorities. / Animals are not speaking to you. Do not listen to them. Leave the area immediately. / Those are not your deceased relatives. Do not speak to them. / You have not traveled in time. It is still the same year. What you are seeing isn't real. You are only temporarily deaf. They can still hear you, so remain calm, keep your doors locked, and hide in the most interior room of the house. / Boil as much water as you can and huddle in the steam. Record the number of children you have. Count every hour. If there are extra children, leave your home immediately.
Something's still listening, and it wants more. Next story. Just don't say its name.
On August 19, 2011, we asked, what can humanity create when robbed of its ability to take from others? Sight was the easiest. 2 wires behind the corneas, heated white hot and pressed against the optical nerve. We did not wish to maim the child, only its first sense. It cried, its harsh screams driving white hotness of their own into the spots behind my eyes. A migraine came and went. The baby's crying came and went. It would be all right. This was only a circumcision, he would never remember. The hardest was his sense of touch. Perhaps we should have done this first, so he would not feel pain. The child was being to understand, if only at a subconscious level. He wailed wordless obscenities at the surgeon as his brain was poked, prodded. The base of the somatosensory system was found. Severed. The subject ceased its wailing, perhaps it knew there was no point. Or perhaps it could no longer feel its own vocal cords vibrating against the thin walls of its young throat. "It's done," he said. He walked out of the room. I doubted he would ever recover from his actions today. Not me. I don't participate. Only record. For days later, Dr. Crane shot himself in the head. Hazmat came through to clean the scraps of Dr. Crane off the walls. They would not let us in. I didn't understand why not. Why would anyone want to see him that way, regardless? All the same, Dr. Crane had done his job. All that was left was to wait. The mind of a newborn is remarkably resilient. Under the harsh glare of innumerable MRIs, his brain began to reform in a worthless attempt to regain some semblance of understanding. To undo the circumcision. We had pills for that, and the shifting stopped. We named him Toad. ////. We watched him, scanned him, prodded him with needles. We fed Toad through an 4-tube that he had no interest in interacting with. Why would he? He wouldn't know it was there. I was admittedly disappointed in the uneventfulness of those first 5 years. If I could have quit, I would have, not out of ambivalence but out of boredom. I locked myself in my room in the evenings, reading the same books, eating the same protein packs for 5 years. I think I might have followed Crane into the abyss after much longer of this. I was saved by Toad. 2 days after his 5th birthday, he crawled. It was nothing short of spectacular. He didn't really go anywhere, just milled about his 10 by 10 glass box for a while. He bumped into walls, and something in his primal brain told him to turn around. We attached a few nodes to him and watched this happen. Little parts of his brain lit up like a pinball machine whenever he hit one. Something was telling him to turn around and stop hitting the wall. Survival instincts, perhaps. Dr. Wilde is convinced that Toad stares at her when she examines him. I think she is going crazy. However, I think he stares at me too. I try not to think anything of it. ////. Today, he growled. It was soft, almost pleasant. He hasn't used his vocal cords since he was a newborn. I'm surprised they even work. ////. He speaks. Not words, but he speaks. It is a simple language, composed mostly of grunts, moans, and the occasional attempt at an M sound. His MRIs show activity unlike anything we've ever seen. Without his senses getting in the way, there is no telling what a boy like him, could create. ////. Today, Toad spoke to me. He looked right at me, he smiled and he spoke to me. ////. The answer is nothing. It only gets taken over by something more qualified. I hope to bring you good news soon, but I have none now. For the glass that was scratched is now broken, and I cannot find him.
And now, as the hour gets cold, and the shadows stretch long into the corners of your room, it's time.
Yeah. Chew the spooky violin. But seriously, this next one? Even I didn't sleep after hearing it.
I've claimed something coming from you.
What? Just because I sleep in a coffin and collect cursed dolls?
Among other things. This is the final descent for the night. One last story, dragged up from the depths of the disturbed and deranged.
Go ahead. Turn off the lights. We dare you.
This is HorrorSlop.
I was put in a cell with Lien Sun, a Chinese-American man. To this day, I don't have the slightest idea what he was in for. Guy looked like your average college kid, but there was just something off about him. He just had this look of complete dissociation, like he was miles away. He never really looked at you, it was as if he looked straight through you. Then again, a lot of inmates get that. I barely managed to talk to him in the first few days. We agreed that I took the top bunk, but that was pretty much all we managed to talk about. We'd have rotating schedules, so I rarely got to work with the same people 2 days in a row. I started to recognize a few faces, but people mostly kept to themselves. There was no locker room talk, no braggarts, no bravado, just people hunkering down and shutting up. But even early on, I noticed something was off. I think it all came down to the yard. And number X200B. But there was that one night when I just couldn't sleep. I'd lay down, and then all of a sudden I'd be wide awake. There was this whistling wind that came down the hall, and it just kept echoing in the back of my head. At first it was a wind, then a whistle. And with no other sound around, it kept growing in my head until it sounded like a goddamn fire truck siren. I'd push my hands against my ears, cover my head in a pillow, but it didn't do a thing. And the funny thing? It did. It stopped. And number X200B. The next day, I was exhausted. I kept nodding off. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, pretty much any time I could sit down. The guards would push me awake, and the other inmates just sort of stared at me. Some of them actively avoided me, like there was something wrong with me. When it was time for the yard, the guards took me aside and asked me to help clean the common area. No yard time for me, gotta sweep some feathers. And number X200B. Things just got worse. I couldn't sleep that entire night, so when it was time to get up I could barely stand. I fell asleep brushing my teeth, dropping my toothbrush in the sink. I was so used to talking to myself by then that I'd blurt out whatever came to mind. I was sleep deprived, exhausted, and just confused. And people took notice. There was this one guy, Marlon, who was about as new as I was. Short, athletic guy who was just itching for a fight. I accidentally bumped into him in the lunch queue, and he went off on me. Pushed me out of the line, bashed me over the face with a tray, and just started wailing on me. The guards were taking their sweet time, so I just had to take it. "You want to get whipped, Greenie?" I said. "You want us to whip you?" I don't know where the words came from. It was just the first thing that came to mind, and the sleep deprivation just forced it out of my mouth like a hiccup. What did you say?" he stammered. I asked if the little Greenie wanted a whipping. "See you at the orchard, Greenie," I added. Whip whip. That night, I didn't even bother trying to sleep. I knew that as soon as I'd lay down to try, I'd just be wide awake again. Instead, I tried sleeping on my feet, or sitting on the floor. This time, Lien couldn't ignore me. He sat up on his bed, looking at me, instead of through me. "Looks like you sleep all the time, just not in here." "They stamp you when you got here? You got any stamps?" "Some, yeah. Blue ones." And number X200B. Lien took a long look at me. In those few dragging seconds, I could hear the wind outside growing louder, and I winced. I groaned to drown out the noise, but it was barely working. I might have to scream to keep it together for another night. "Which did you get?" I asked. "What do they mean?" "Maladaptive." Lien was out like a light, but as expected, I couldn't sleep. I paced back and forth, screamed into a pillow, and tried massaging my ears. The scratching noise sort of helped, but I still found myself restless. Finally, I got out of bed and pressed my head against the door. Maybe if I let the wind howl, it'll take pity on me. Maybe it would get to a point where it'd either kill me, or stop. I didn't care which, as long as something happened. And number X200B. The next morning, Lien pulled me up as the guards did their rounds. I'd slept all through the night, and I felt amazing. But even then and there, at my best, I could hear a little piercing sound. That wind, that whisper, was still in the back of my mind, even now during daytime. But all I had to do was lean into it, to listen, and a wave of calm would wash over me. It worried me how easy it was. And number X200B. So I did. Marlon was bleeding on the floor from a dozen wounds. Deep bruising, broken bones. Possibly brain damage from repeated hits to the side of the head. Involuntary twitching, like a fish out of water, his mouth opening and closing. Like me, he just couldn't find the words. It looked like I'd beaten him with a goddamn tire iron. Within minutes, I was pacing the cell, spewing whatever nonsense came flooding through my mind. Nonsense about everything and everyone, just noise. A taser to the neck, and I didn't even feel it. As I dropped to the floor in a spasm, my body was screaming with laughter. He had her on the copier. She didn't even think about you. She hoped to see him there again the next week. And there, somewhere deep inside, I found my own thoughts and words, standing by as someone else held the reins. I wanted to tear my ears out, to make it all go away, but I couldn't even move my hands. Shit, we got a bloomer. We had a bloomer this whole time. So why we talking him out? Fuck protocol. And number X200B. Nothing's happening. I heard. We take him in. I looked up into the clouds. And there, far above, I saw something looking back. No, I wheezed. All was silent. But there was something more. That eye in the sky, looking down at me. Not malevolent, not angry, not evil, just vast beyond comprehension. They came running up to me. Guards grabbed my legs, pulling me down. It felt like I was being torn in half, part of me desperately reaching upwards, and my conscious self holding me to the ground. All the while, the pleasant silence was turning from a whisper to a scream. I dropped to the ground as they scrambled to get inside. Another guard fell flat on his stomach as something invisible grabbed his ankles. Again, a soft whistle, and he was gone. A spot in the dark. Run. Come on. The other guards were standing by the entrance, holding the doors open. They were waving at me, desperate for me to just run. But every part of me wanted to stay. To reach up. To touch the sky and go back to that place I was meant to be. To feel my mother's cardigan between my baby soft fingertips, and to look into the night sky with wonder of what could be. It was all there. And yet, my body knew to run. But for a moment, we all just stood there. We weren't inmate and prison guards. In that moment we were just people, trying to understand ourselves. And number X200B. Every now and then, a white feather still lands on my shoulder. And I just know that looking up will be the end of me.
And there you have it, dear listeners. One final scream, echoing into the void.
Yeah. Void screams, eternal darkness, I get it. Can I eat now?
We're still on air, Roxy.
Oh no, just the spooky FCC is gonna haunt us for breaking the mood.
If you enjoyed tonight's descent into depravity, don't forget to like, subscribe, and what does he always say?
Stab that bell icon like it's your ex possessed by a demon, and leave a comment telling us what story made you question. I have choices.
And if you survive the night, we'll be waiting.
Same dat time, same that crypt.
You're the reason we have complaints, you know that.
You're welcome.